We stay on the topic. Now, moving the focus and adding Greenland, U.S. Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen has said that the debate over Greenland makes so little sense. During a talk at Copenhagen University, Shaheen is part of a bipartisan U.S. lawmaker delegation in Copenhagen to reassure Denmark and Greenland leaders of congressional support despite President Donald Trump's threats to seize Greenland. Let's listen into what more she has shared.
I'm here today because millions of Americans are deeply concerned about the recent rhetoric of the United States taking over Greenland, either buying it or using military force. And I think that rhetoric doesn't just undermine our relationship, both with Denmark and with Greenland, but also with the other NATO countries and with Europe. It undermines NATO at a time when our adversaries seek to benefit from division. Just the suggestion that the U.S. would take Greenland by force does real damage, not just to the relationship with Greenland, with Denmark, but to America's own national security. It erodes decades of hard-won confidence among allies, and it weakens the sense of security that comes with it. And that rhetoric plays right into the hands of our greatest adversaries, Russia.
Trump has reiterated that the U.S. needs Greenland and that Denmark cannot be relied upon to protect the island, while stating something will work out regarding the future governance of the Danish territory. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Dr. Asta Chadha. She's joining us from Kyoto. Thank you very much, Dr. Chadha, for staying with us. Now, as you mentioned earlier in our discussion, that this move by U.S. or Trump in particular has weakened the alliance of NATO, and the trust factor is abused and affected. It seems like it has also affected the trust between federal government and state government or the U.S. Trump administration. Now we see that U.S. Democratic senators have visited Denmark, taking Denmark's side. How do you think that Trump will be eyeing this, and do you think the frustration might lead him to say something or do something again? What can we make out of this, the deepening division between this, even affecting the international relations right now?
Well, let's try and understand what is the Trump logic here, or the logic of his whole administration with regard to Greenland. They're saying that it's a national security issue. They're saying that Greenland is a security black hole. They're saying that Denmark cannot adequately defend its 27,000 miles of coastline from the Russian and Chinese incursions. But the truth is that if we look into those arguments, they don't really fall exactly true. US wants access to Greenland, it says, because it doesn't really control it yet. That's not true. As a result of its partnership with the Europeans in general, with the EU, and now with NATO, US does already, the 1951 treaty does guarantee significant military rights to the United States. So there, that argument goes out of the window. The second thing that US seems to be demanding, again, is the fact that Greenland has a lot of critical minerals that are essential for the United States to challenge the Chinese hegemony when it comes toward the securitization of the critical mineral supply chain. Again, we heard the Greenlandic and Danish leaders expressing complete willingness and alacrity to partner with the United States when it comes to mineral extraction without a change in status of sovereignty of Greenland. If it is the access to Greenland that matters to the Trump administration, the Europeans would be more than happy to agree with the United States, because US is a very important ally and they wouldn't want to deny that. That's one. Two, they wouldn't want to fracture the Western alliance to Russia's benefit. On one hand, they're trying to secure the US interest and US guarantees when it comes to Ukrainian defense. They wouldn't want to throw it out of the window in the name of US, a little bit of a conflict over Greenland and a difference in perspectives. So now this delegation that has gone there to assure the Europeans, on one hand, it's a good step to show that there are others, who are thinking this in a very practical, very pragmatic manner. They do not think that any sort of a conflict or flaring of this issue is in benefit of anyone. At the same time, from a European perspective, this is very confusing. even though there are people in the administration or these leaders who've gone to talk to the Europeans, even though this might be seen as a welcome step of people beyond the administration looking at the Greenland issue, like I said, in a better, more pragmatic security manner, most probably these people don't have enough power. I mean, we know if President Trump has decided on something, he would probably want to, in some way, instrumentalize those threats, instrumentalize those ideas of annexation of an ally territory, which completely goes against the principle of NATO, which was precisely
Yes.
based on respecting national sovereignty. So is the European pillar safe in itself? I think this is something that European leaders are already wondering about. They're already worried about it. They're trying to find a neutral, predictable protector in the United States, which they're kind of potentially failing to achieve with the talks with the United States. Now, how likely is it that US is actually going to make a kinetic move? It's difficult to say at this point, but
Yes.
if the Europeans do agree with the US and its presence and secure its interests, it's very likely that President Trump would probably also look at Greenland as a potential area where they could have better partnerships, where they could have a leverage for United States in terms of its interests, and drop all the ideas of annexation or forceful threats that are currently being made by the administration.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asta Chadha, for joining us today and sharing that deep insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move on to Canada.